Be my date to the dances, a poor student asked a nurse, unaware she was a CEO's daughter. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to our main character. The fluorescent lights of the university hospital buzzed softly as Evan Cole pushed a cart of trays down the corridor. The sleeves of his faded hoodie rolled up to his elbows. He'd been on his feet since sunrise, juggling shifts at the cafeteria before his afternoon anatomy lab. The smell of antiseptic and overbrewed coffee clung to the air. His sneakers squeaked on the polished linoleum floors. He paused by the vending machine, digging into his pocket just a few coins left. Guess dinner's ramen again, he muttered with a wry smile. A sudden crash echoed from the break room. He rushed in and found a girl kneeling on the floor, paper cups scattered, a mop tipped over beside her. She wore light blue scrubs and a name badge that read Lila. Her hair was pulled into a messy bun, loose strands brushing her cheek. She looked up, cheeks flushed. "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I tripped over that stupid bucket." Evan crouched beside her, grabbing a few rolling cups. "Don't worry about it. Happens to me at least once a day." Their hands brushed. She laughed nervously. "You work here?" "Cafeteria and janitor," he said with a shrug. 2 for 1 special. "Then I owe you big time." She smiled, the kind that made the fluorescent light look softer. "Maybe let me buy you coffee to make up for this." "Coffee?" Evan grinned. "Deal. But only if you promise not to trip again." Lila laughed, a clear sound in the sterile room. They talked while cleaning up. She said she was helping out in the recovery wing, volunteering after nursing school. He didn't notice the subtle hesitation when she said volunteering. To him, she was just another student hustling through long nights. When she reached to hand him a bandage for a small cut on his thumb, he blurted, "You've got great technique. Are you sure you're not a real nurse?" "Maybe I just watch too many medical dramas," she teased, wrapping the bandage neatly. "Well, if you don't mind playing nurse again." He hesitated, then smiled shyly. "Be my date to the campus dance this Friday." She blinked, surprised, then laughed softly. "That's pretty bold for a guy with a paper cut." "I'm all about bold moves," he said, his eyes lighting up. "Unless you've got a better offer?" "Maybe I don't," she murmured. A brief silence, broken by the distant hum of hospital monitors. Lila looked down, adjusting her sleeve. "Okay, cafeteria guy. You've got yourself a date." Evan's grin spread wide enough to reach his tired eyes. "Then it's settled." She nodded, pretending to check her phone, but her expression softened when he wasn't looking. For the first time in weeks, Evan felt like the universe had given him a small win, a spark of light in the middle of fluorescent fatigue. What he didn't know was that Lila Lawson wasn't a nurse at all. She was the daughter of Charles Lawson, the billionaire CEO funding the hospital's research wing, and this innocent invitation would change both of their lives forever. The next morning, the city air felt heavy with the scent of rain and coffee. Evan balanced 2 trays in the cafeteria, his cap slightly tilted, his mind drifting to the night before. He could not believe he had asked that girl out so casually. "Be my date to the dance?" he murmured under his breath, almost laughing at himself. Maybe she had only said yes to be polite. Maybe she would not even show up. His coworker Luis nudged him with a grin. "You smiling at the mashed potatoes, man?" Evan rolled his eyes. "Just thinking." "About the girl in scrubs?" Luis teased. "I saw you talking yesterday." "She is not." Evan stopped, realizing how obvious he must have looked. Luis chuckled. "Good luck, Romeo." Across campus, in a sunlit office with glass walls, Lila Lawson sat across from her father, Charles Lawson, the founder of Metatron Group. The man's presence filled the room's silver hair, tailored suit, calm authority. "You disappeared again yesterday," he said, not looking up from his tablet. "You were supposed to join me at the donor dinner." "I went to the hospital instead," she said softly. "To help," he sighed. "Lila, you do not need to prove anything. The foundation already donates millions. You do not have to mop floors." "It is not about that," she said, frustration in her tone. "You keep saying I do not understand real life. Maybe this is how I learn." His eyes softened slightly. "You sound just like your mother." "That is not a bad thing," she replied. She left his office before he could respond, clutching her phone, her mind still replaying Evan's smile. That night, she walked to the dorm cafeteria where he worked, trying to blend in among students in hoodies and backpacks. When Evan saw her in line, his eyes widened. "You showed up?" he said, voice half disbelief, half delight. "I said I would." She glanced at the tray of spaghetti he was serving. "Is this your secret recipe?" "If you count powdered sauce as a secret," he joked. She laughed. It was easy with him, simple, real. They sat outside on a bench after his shift. The campus lights glowed against the damp pavement. "So," he said, "why nursing?" She hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "Because I like helping people. I guess I grew up around too many who forgot how." "Same here," he said. "My mom got sick when I was a kid. Hospitals scared me then. I want to work in one that does not turn people away." He looked down, embarrassed. "Sorry, that sounded dramatic." "No," she said softly. "That sounded honest." A long pause, their breath fogged in the cool air. "I still cannot believe you agreed to the dance," he said finally. "Maybe I needed a reminder that life is not all about work," she said. "Or maybe you needed a nurse who likes to dance." "Maybe," he whispered, smiling. A bus rumbled past, lights streaking through the mist. She stood, brushing off her jeans. "I have to go. Big day tomorrow." "What department?" he asked. "The recovery wing," she said, then quickly added, "volunteering." He did not notice the flicker of worry in her eyes. "See you Friday?" "You will," she promised. When she walked away, Evan felt lighter than he had in months. Across town, Lila stepped into the back seat of a black sedan waiting by the curb. Her driver opened the door. "Home, Miss Lawson?" She nodded, watching the campus disappear through the window. Her reflection looked different, simpler, freer. "Miss Lawson," the driver asked after a pause, "will you be attending the charity gala this Friday?" She smiled faintly. "No, I already have plans." As the car pulled away, her phone buzzed with a message from Evan. "Just making sure you are still my date to the dance." She typed back, "Would not miss it for the world." For the first time in a long while, she meant every word. Friday arrived with the kind of golden light that made even the old campus buildings look new again. Evan had borrowed a navy suit from the theater department's costume rack, one sleeve slightly shorter than the other. He had polished his shoes until the scuffs only looked halfway permanent, and tucked a single white carnation into his jacket pocket. His heart had not stopped racing since sunrise. Luis had teased him all morning, saying, "Man, this girl better be real, or you are dancing with me." Evan laughed it off, but deep down he was nervous. He had not been on a real date in years, and certainly not with someone like Lila. By sunset, the student ballroom glowed under strings of fairy lights. Music thumped softly, laughter mixed with the clinking of soda glasses, and the scent of cheap perfume hung in the air. Evan stood near the entrance, checking his phone every few minutes. She had not texted yet. Maybe she had changed her mind. Maybe her volunteering shift ran late. He adjusted his tie again, wondering how long he should wait. Then the doors opened, and for a moment the world slowed. Lila stepped inside wearing a simple pale blue dress, her hair down in soft curls. She looked nothing like the volunteers in scrubs he was used to seeing, and yet somehow, exactly the same. She smiled when she saw him. "Sorry I am late. Traffic was insane." Evan let out a breath he did not realize he had been holding. "You are perfect timing." They moved to the dance floor, her hand light in his, the music pulsing gently around them. "Not bad for a cafeteria guy," she teased as he spun her clumsily. "Not bad for a nurse who claims she does not dance," he shot back. She laughed, the sound blending with the music. For a while it felt like the rest of the world had vanished. No debts, no titles, no secrets. Just two people moving in sync under string lights. Later, they slipped out to the courtyard for air. The night was crisp, the fountain nearby reflecting the glow of the lamps. Lila leaned against the stone ledge, her breath visible in the cold. "You really do not give up easily, do you?" she said, half teasing. "When it comes to something worth trying for, no," he replied. "What about you? You seem like someone who runs from fancy things." "Maybe I do," she admitted, her tone softening. "Maybe I am tired of people seeing me for everything but who I am." He nodded, not fully understanding but sensing the weight in her words. "Then let them see the real you. I think she is incredible." She looked up at him, surprised by his sincerity. A long silence followed, broken only by the gentle splash of the fountain. You really think that? She asked. I know it, he said. Their eyes met, and for the first time, neither of them looked away. When the music shifted inside, Lila smiled faintly. You are going to make someone very lucky one day, Evan. I hope she likes cheap coffee and second-hand jokes, he said, trying to lighten the moment. She smiled again, but this time there was something sad in it, as if she knew this perfect night could not last. Her phone buzzed in her purse. She glanced at the screen and quickly pressed it dark. Everything okay? He asked. Yes, she said, forcing a small laugh. Just my dad being. My dad. Strict. Protective. She corrected softly. He does not exactly approve of my friends. Then I must be trouble, he said. Maybe, she murmured. But the good kind. As the night wound down, Evan walked her to the parking lot. She hesitated beside a black car waiting at the curb, the driver stepping forward. That your ride? He asked. Yes, it is. A family thing, she said quickly. I will call you tomorrow. You better, he said, smiling. She nodded, but as she slid into the car, her heart ached. Evan waved as the car pulled away, unaware that the man on the other end of her unanswered text, the one waiting at home in a penthouse overlooking the city, was Charles Lawson, the CEO whose daughter had just danced with a cafeteria boy who did not even know her last name. The weekend passed in a blur of texts and late-night calls. Evan could not stop smiling every time her name lit up his phone. They talked about everything and nothing: favorite books, bad cafeteria food, the smell of rain on hot pavement. He told her about his mom's illness and how he was saving every dollar to help her get better care. Lila listened quietly, her heart tightening with every detail. She had seen that same hospital ward, the one he described, the one her father's company had built. She never told him. It was easier to stay Lila the nurse than Lila Lawson, daughter of the man who owned half the city's medical network. On Monday morning, Evan started his shift early. He was stacking boxes of fruit juice in the cafeteria when his phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. You are invited to the Metatron Charity Gala. Formal attire required. He frowned, thinking it was a mistake. Then a second message came. Bring a guest. His heart skipped. Lila worked with that foundation. Maybe she could get him in. When he asked her later, she smiled carefully. You got an invite? Yeah, weird, right? I figured maybe you could sneak me past security, he joked. I think you will be fine, she said. You should come. You will be there? Yes. But do not freak out. It is a work thing, he laughed. Me? Freak out? Never. That Friday, Evan borrowed the same suit, pressed it until it almost looked new, and took the bus downtown. The hotel hosting the gala looked like a palace of glass chandeliers, velvet carpets, people in tuxedos drinking champagne. He felt completely out of place. When the hostess asked for his name, he panicked slightly. Evan Cole? She scanned her list, then smiled politely. Right this way, Mr. Cole. Table 12. He blinked in disbelief. Table 12. That number felt familiar, like fate was teasing him again. He walked inside, eyes darting across the glittering room, searching for Lila. And then he saw her. She was standing beside an older man in a charcoal suit, surrounded by reporters. Her dress shimmered under the lights, elegant and flawless. The man beside her rested a protective hand on her shoulder. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, his voice carrying over the crowd. Tonight, we honor compassion and innovation in healthcare. Please welcome my daughter, Lila Lawson. The room erupted in applause. Evan froze. Daughter, Lawson. His breath caught in his throat. She looked radiant and unreachable. Their eyes met across the room. Her smile faltered, a flicker of fear crossing her face. He took a step back, his chest tightening. Everything clicked at once. The driver, the fancy car, the phone she kept silencing. He was the cafeteria boy. She was the billionaire's daughter. He turned and walked out before she could reach him. Outside, the night air hit him like ice. He loosened his tie and sat on the steps, his hands shaking. Stupid, he muttered. How could I be so stupid? A moment later, her heels clicked against the marble behind him. Evan, wait. He stood, but did not face her. So, what was this? A game? A social experiment? No, it was never that, she said, her voice trembling. I just wanted to know what it felt like to be normal. You treated me like a person, not a headline. Yeah, well, maybe you should have trusted me enough to tell the truth. His voice cracked. I do not belong in your world, Lila. That is not true. Then why did you hide? She hesitated. Because I was afraid. I thought if you knew who I was, you would walk away. Looks like you saved me the trouble, he said, forcing a bitter laugh before walking toward the streetlights. She watched him disappear into the glow, her heart breaking with every step. Inside the ballroom, the music swelled again, but for Lila, the night had gone silent. For the first time, the daughter of a CEO realized money could not buy back trust or love. The days that followed felt longer than ever. Evan stopped answering her texts, stopped checking his phone entirely. The cafeteria felt emptier, even though it was full of noise and people. Every clatter of trays reminded him of her laugh. Every smell of coffee reminded him of that night outside the dance hall. He kept telling himself it was for the best. People like her did not end up with people like him. But every time he thought that, his chest ached a little more. Across town, Lila sat in her father's office, staring out over the skyline that had once made her proud. Her father spoke, but she barely heard him. Lila, I hope you learned something from this little rebellion, Charles said, adjusting his cufflinks. You cannot mix fantasy with real life. Those people are not like us. Those people, she repeated, her voice colder than she intended. You mean the ones who actually work for what they have? Do not twist my words, he said sharply. I am trying to protect you. The world will not be kind if you give your heart to someone who cannot stand beside you. Maybe I do not want someone who stands beside your boardroom, she shot back, tears burning her eyes. Maybe I want someone who actually sees me. She left before he could answer. That evening, she sat in her car outside the hospital, watching students hurry in and out under the streetlights. She had come every night since the gala, hoping to see him, to explain. But Evan never looked her way. Inside, he worked in silence, his usual easy smile replaced by something distant. Luis noticed. You good, man? Yeah, Evan said without looking up. Just tired, Lila, Luis guessed. Evan gave a humorless laugh. Turns out she is not exactly who I thought. Who is? Luis said. Man, if you like her, talk to her. Rich or poor, it is still the same heart beating in her chest. Evan shook his head. Not in her world. A few nights later, a letter arrived at the dorm reception, sealed with an embossed Metatron logo. Evan almost threw it away, but curiosity won. Inside was a single card with neat handwriting. Please come to the exhibition tomorrow at the downtown gallery. It is about future healers, people who change lives quietly. I would like you to see it. Lila. He nearly tore it in half, then stopped. His name was written at the bottom with care, not arrogance. The next evening, against his better judgment, he went. The gallery was filled with photographs of nurses, doctors, and volunteers, ordinary people doing extraordinary work. At the center hung a single photo, him kneeling beside a patient during a community clinic week. He had no idea anyone had taken it. Beneath it was a plaque that read, Evan Cola Heart That Heals Without a Title. He froze. A soft voice behind him said, You told me once you wanted to work in a hospital that never turns people away. I wanted people to see that heart. He turned. Lila stood there in a simple white dress, no jewelry, no bodyguards, no pretense, just her. You should not have done this, he said quietly. I had to, she replied. Because you were right. I hid who I was out of fear. I thought money protected me, but it only made me smaller. You showed me something real, and I ruined it. He looked away, torn between anger and the ache he had carried since that night. You cannot fix everything with money, Lila. I am not trying to, she said. I am trying to start over with honesty this time. For a long moment, silence filled the space between them, heavy but alive. Then she lifted her wrist. Around it was the same handmade bracelet he had given her weeks ago. You said it would bring luck, she whispered. Maybe it brought me back to the right place. His eyes softened despite himself. You kept that? Every day. Slowly, he stepped closer, the anger fading, replaced by something gentler. You really mean it? Every word. He took a breath, the first deep one in days, and said quietly, Then maybe this was the best mistake we ever made. She smiled through her tears. Maybe it was. Outside, the city lights shimmered like scattered stars, and for the first time, both of them felt like they were finally standing in the same world. Weeks passed since the gallery night, but something in Evan's life had quietly shifted. The anger that once weighed him down had melted into something softer, curiosity, maybe even forgiveness. He kept thinking about Lila's words, about the courage it must have taken for her to stand there and admit her truth in front of him. Every time he walked past the gallery on his way home, he saw the reflection of that photo through the glass, his own tired face frozen in a moment of compassion, and it reminded him who he wanted to be. One chilly morning, as he served coffee to nurses finishing their night shift, a familiar voice broke through the clatter of trays. "Still working 2 jobs, I see." He turned and saw Lila standing by the counter, bundled in a gray coat, a coffee cup already in her hand. "Lila," he said, surprised. "What are you doing here?" "Volunteering again," she said with a small smile. "No cameras this time, I promise." He hesitated, then motioned to the empty seat across from him. "You might as well sit before my boss thinks you are a celebrity donation." She laughed, setting down her cup. "How is your mom?" "Better," he said, his expression softening. "The hospital started a patient assistance program last month. They covered her treatment. Some foundation helped fund it." Her eyes met his, and she said quietly, "It was not the foundation, it was me." He stared at her, speechless. "You paid for it?" "I wanted to do something right," she said simply. "You would have done the same if you could." He swallowed hard, unsure whether to feel grateful or guilty. "I did not need saving, Lila." "I know," she said. "That is why I did it. Because you are the kind of person who saves everyone else." The silence that followed felt different this time. No walls, no anger, just honesty. "You know," he said slowly. "You never told me what happened with your dad. We argued," she admitted. He did not understand. "But last week he came to the gallery. He saw your photo. He said, 'That young man has more integrity than most of my board combined.'" Evan blinked. "Your father said that?" "He did. He even asked if you would consider joining the foundation's youth program. Paid, of course." He laughed softly. "Let me guess, another charity act?" "No," she said, smiling. "A partnership." He looked down at his hands, then back at her. "You really think a cafeteria guy belongs in your world?" "I do not have a world anymore," she said. "Just people I want in it." He smiled, the kind of smile that carried 1,000 unspoken things. "Well, if this is your way of asking me out again, you could have just said so." "Would you have said yes?" she asked. "Maybe," he said, grinning. "But I would have made you buy your own coffee this time." They both laughed, the sound echoing softly through the cafeteria. Later that week, Evan walked through the new community clinic that Metatron had opened downtown. He was now part of a small advisory group focused on healthcare access for low-income families. When he entered the waiting area, he saw a framed quote on the wall. It read, "True leadership begins with kindness." He knew exactly who had chosen it. That evening, he found Lila on the clinic rooftop watching the sunset. She turned as he approached, her eyes glowing in the fading light. "Hey, stranger," she said. "You made it." "I promised, did I not?" he said. They stood side by side, the city stretching out beneath them, silent but alive. "So," he said quietly, "what happens next?" "Whatever we build," she replied. "Something real." He reached for her hand. "No lies. No masks," she said, squeezing his fingers. The last rays of the sun caught the silver bracelet on her wrist, the same one he had made with a piece of medical thread. It glimmered like a promise reborn. For a long moment, they just stood there, 2 worlds finally meeting in the same light. And when he finally spoke again, his voice was gentle but certain. "Then let us start from here. No titles, no secrets, just us." Lila smiled, her voice barely above a whisper. "Just us." The wind carried their laughter into the evening sky, and for the first time both of them knew that their story born from a mistake had found its perfect ending. A year passed, and life had changed in quiet but extraordinary ways. Evan finished his degree with honors, balancing classes, work, and his new position at the Metatron Community Foundation. The once sleep-deprived cafeteria worker had become a voice for underprivileged students and low-income patients, speaking at town halls and clinics, always grounded in humility. People admired him, but he never forgot where he came from. Every Friday evening, he still volunteered at the same cafeteria, serving meals to students who reminded him of his younger self. Lila visited often, usually pretending to help but mostly distracting him with stories and laughter. The two had found a rhythm, one that felt easy and honest. They lived in separate apartments, both too focused on their individual paths, but their connection never wavered. One crisp autumn afternoon, as the foundation prepared for its annual Hearts That Heal event, Lila knocked on Evan's office door, holding a box wrapped in gold paper. You are supposed to open this on stage tonight, she said, setting it on his desk. Stage? He asked. You did not tell me I have to speak again. You are the keynote, remember? She said with a grin. Besides, you love speeches. No, I love when you introduce me, he said, teasing. Makes me look important. She rolled her eyes. You do that all by yourself. Hours later, the event began in the same grand ballroom where, a year earlier, their story had fallen apart. This time it glowed with new meaning. The banners read, "Healing through humanity," and the air buzzed with warmth instead of tension. When Evan took the stage, applause erupted. He paused, glancing at the audience, the doctors, nurses, volunteers, even Charles Lawson sitting proudly in the front row. A year ago, Evan began, his voice steady, I was serving coffee across town. I thought my worth was measured by what I could earn, not by who I could help. Then someone taught me that healing does not always come from medicine. Sometimes it comes from honesty, forgiveness, and love. He looked toward Lila, who smiled back, her eyes bright with emotion. I used to think mistakes ruined lives, he continued, but sometimes they build them instead. The crowd rose in applause. After the ceremony, as people mingled, Evan stepped off the stage, searching for her. He found her near the photo exhibit, the same one from last year, now expanded with dozens of new faces. She stood in front of the old photo of him at the clinic, tracing the edge of the frame. You always find me by this picture, she said softly. It reminds me why everything happened, he replied. She turned to face him, eyes glistening. You never opened your gift. He smiled, unwrapping the box. Inside was a sketchbook. Its first page held a hand-drawn picture of a small clinic with a sign above the door, Cole Lawson Health Center. Beneath it, in neat handwriting, were the words, Let us build this together. Evan looked up, speechless. Lila, this is not our next step, she said, cutting him off gently. A real place, a free clinic for anyone who needs care. Dad has already agreed to fund it, but I told him it would not happen without you. He blinked, overwhelmed. You are serious? Completely, she said. You once said you wanted a hospital that never turns anyone away. Let us make that real. He stared at her, a rush of pride and disbelief flooding through him. You are unbelievable. So are you, she whispered. Without thinking, he pulled her into a hug, the kind that felt like home. Around them, the chatter and music faded into a distant hum. You really think we can do it? He asked. I do, she said, her voice steady. Because this time we are not starting from a lie. We are starting from love. The applause from another speech rippled through the hall, but neither of them moved. In that moment, surrounded by light and laughter, Evan realized that every wrong turn, every misunderstanding, had led him here to the woman who had taught him the true meaning of grace. When they finally pulled apart, Lila smiled up at him and said, Ready for another mistake worth making? He laughed softly, his hand still holding hers. Only if it is with you. The music swelled again, and as they walked toward the crowd, side by side, it felt like the end of one story and the beginning of a better one. Construction on the Cole Lawson Health Center began the following spring. The sound of hammers and saws echoed across the quiet street where an old warehouse once stood. Now, it was transforming into something beautiful, a place where anyone could walk in without fear of being turned away. Evan spent his mornings at the site, his hands often covered in dust and blueprints, while Lila handled the endless meetings and paperwork that came with running a foundation. It was a partnership built on trust and shared purpose, something neither of them had known before. Every evening, they would sit on the unfinished steps, watching the sunset paint the sky over the city they both loved. Do you ever think about how far we have come? Lila asked one night, resting her head on his shoulder. Every day, he said. Sometimes I still wake up expecting to serve coffee. You could still do that, she teased. Except now you would probably own the place. He laughed, shaking his head. No thank you, I think I will stick with building hospitals. Our hospital, she corrected softly. Ours, he agreed. The months passed quickly. By autumn, the clinic stood ready, bright and welcoming, its glass doors etched with the words, Healing belongs to everyone. On opening day, the community gathered under a white canopy strung with fairy lights. Reporters were there, but for once, Lila did not care about the cameras. She only cared about the faces of the people who had come, the single mothers, the elderly couples, the children holding balloons with the clinic's logo. Evan stood beside her, his suit slightly rumpled, his tie crooked, but his eyes full of pride. Charles Lawson took the stage first. "When my daughter first came to me with this idea," he began, "I did not understand. I thought success was about building empires. She showed me it is about building people. Today, I am proud not as a CEO, but as a father." The crowd applauded warmly. Then Lila stepped forward, her voice steady but emotional. "This clinic began as a conversation about kindness," she said, "about believing that one small act can start a chain that changes everything. My father taught me to lead with vision, but someone else taught me to lead with heart." Her gaze found Evan in the crowd, and for a moment, the noise faded. "That someone reminded me that love is not weakness, it is strength." When she stepped back, the applause grew into cheers. Evan joined her on stage to cut the ribbon. As the golden fabric fluttered to the ground, he leaned close and whispered, "You were incredible." "So were you," she whispered back. The first patients entered the clinic that afternoon, a teenage boy with a broken wrist, a mother carrying a feverish baby, an old man in need of new glasses. Evan helped register them. Lila handed out welcome packets, and together they watched the waiting room fill not with desperation, but with hope. Later that night, after the crowd had gone, they sat in the lobby surrounded by leftover balloons and flowers. "You know," Evan said quietly, "I used to think the best thing I could do was escape the life I was born into. But maybe the real victory is bringing what I learned there to people who need it." "That is what makes you different," she said. "You never forgot what it feels like to need help." He smiled, reaching into his pocket and pulling out a small velvet box. Her heart skipped. "Evan," she whispered, "do not tell me that is what I think it is." "You said we should build something together," he said, opening the box to reveal a delicate silver ring. "So here is my blueprint." Tears filled her eyes as he added softly, "Will you marry me, Lila Lawson? Not the CEO's daughter, not the philanthropist, just the girl who spilled coffee and changed my life." She laughed through her tears. "Yes," she said without hesitation. 1,000 times, yes. Outside, the clinic's lights glowed against the dark, and somewhere in the distance, a bus rolled past the same line that had once carried a tired boy with too many dreams. Now, those dreams had found a home, right where they both stood, holding each other and smiling into a future they had built with their own hands. A year later, the Cole Lawson Health Center stood as a beacon of hope in the heart of the city. Its glass walls reflected morning sunlight, and every day, hundreds of patients walked through its doors. Students, veterans, single parents, the elderly, each finding care, dignity, and warmth. Inside, Evan moved through the halls with quiet purpose, greeting staff and patients alike by name. He no longer wore the cafeteria uniform that once defined him, but he had kept the same humility, the same way of listening that made people feel seen. In his office hung a single photograph of him and Lila standing outside the clinic on opening day, smiling like they had conquered the world. On the desk beside it sat a framed quote that read, "The best mistakes lead to the truest beginnings." Lila had written it by hand on their wedding morning. Their ceremony had been small, held in the garden behind the clinic, under a canopy of white flowers. The staff and patients had gathered, laughing, crying, cheering. There had been no lavish gowns or glittering chandeliers, just sunlight, laughter, and the soft sound of vows whispered with trembling voices. Charles Lawson had walked his daughter down the aisle, his eyes filled with pride instead of pride's old cousin, ego. When the officiant had asked if there were any objections, Luis had shouted from the back, "Only that he still owes me $20." Everyone laughed, and Evan had shaken his head, his cheeks flushed with happiness. Now, months later, their life together was simple but full. Every morning they had breakfast at the small corner cafe where they first shared coffee. Every evening, they walked home from the clinic, hand in hand, their shadows stretching long against the sidewalk. Sometimes, when they passed the bus stop where they had first met, Evan would squeeze her hand and whisper, "Still my best mistake." And she would smile and reply, "Still my favorite, yes." One afternoon, as spring rolled in again, the foundation hosted a new youth scholarship program inspired by Evan's journey. Dozens of students gathered in the lobby, nervously clutching application forms. Evan stepped up to the microphone, glancing briefly at Lila before speaking. "A few years ago," he said, "I was standing behind a counter wondering how to pay my tuition. Then someone believed in me. She did not see the uniform or the struggle, she saw potential. And that belief changed everything. So today, we are not just giving scholarships. We are investing in belief, the kind that turns mistakes into miracles." The crowd applauded, and Lila felt tears sting her eyes. After the event, she joined him by the clinic's front doors. "You are getting really good at this speech thing," she teased. "I learned from the best," he said. "Besides, I had a lot of practice apologizing to you." She laughed. "You are forgiven forever." Just then, a little girl tugged on Lila's sleeve. "Are you the lady who made this place?" Lila knelt down. "We both did," she said, pointing to Evan. The girl smiled shyly. "Thank you. My mom says this clinic saved her." Lila's throat tightened. "You saved us too, sweetheart," she whispered. After the girl ran off, Evan wrapped an arm around her. "Moments like that," he said softly, "make everything worth it." "Every single thing," she agreed. As dusk settled over the city, the clinic lights flickered on one by one, glowing like constellations against the skyline. Inside, nurses moved with quiet grace. Patients laughed softly in the waiting area, and the air hummed with life. Evan and Lila stood outside, watching it all unfold. "You know," he said, "when I was a kid, I thought love was supposed to be perfect. Turns out, it is supposed to be honest. And brave," she added. "And messy," he said with a grin. "Exactly like us." She leaned her head on his shoulder, smiling at the neon sign above the entrance that read Cole Lawson Health Center. "Look what one mistake started," she said. He kissed her forehead gently. "The best one I ever made." The camera of life panned wide, catching the city bathed in light, the clinic alive with laughter and healing, and two people once from opposite worlds standing together, proof that love and kindness could bridge any distance. Their story, born from a misunderstanding, had become something timeless, a promise that every wrong turn could still lead home.